Okay, guys, Unit 1, Activity 5, we're looking at multiplying positive and negative integers. So, and some basic rules. So, we know this, okay, so 4 times 4 is 16, okay? So that's plus 4. Really, if you want to put signs here, that's plus 4 times plus 4 is equal to plus 16. And many of you guys know, and you've done this before, a positive times a negative, and I referred to this in the last video too. A positive times a negative is a negative. So 2 times 3 is, negative 2 times 3 is going to be negative. And what's the number? So you look at the sign and the number. Well, the number is simple. It's just 2 times 3 is 6. And then if you have one negative, your answer is going to be negative. Here, if you have a bunch of numbers being multiplied, so negative 1 times negative 2 times negative 3, well, let's do it in steps. Negative 1 times negative 2. Negative 1 times negative 2 is negative times the negative is positive. 1 times 2 is 2. So now I have plus 2 times negative 3. So I'm just rewriting this underneath. 2 times 3 is 6, and that's negative. So if you look at this, it's quite straightforward. If I have one negative, I have a negative answer. If I had two negatives, so if I had negative 3 times negative, put that in the bracket, negative 3 times negative 5, let's say. A negative times a negative is a positive, and you can even think about making, sometimes we teach it this way. There's a line, there's a line, there's a line, there's a line, right? So one line, two lines, there's a plus sign, right? And then the number is 15. Think of it that way. If you keep going, it goes back and forth, and it works out this way. If you have an odd number of negatives, then your final answer is negative. If you have an even number of negatives, then so odd, even, you end up as a positive. You just go back and forth enough times. If you have a question like this, negative 6 times negative 3 divided by 9 times negative 1, just do it in pieces. Brackets first. Square brackets go before round brackets. Other times you'll see this too. You just see like a myriad of brackets here. So what you do is you start off in with the square brackets, and then after that work your way through. But if you don't have square brackets, sorry, it's the same thing. You just add more round brackets, okay? Most of the time they end up with round first and then square. So here it's negative 6 times negative 3 in the square bracket, and that is 6 times 3 is 18. Negative times a negative is positive, and you can put a positive or not. I'll tend to do that, to put it there just to make a point, but you don't need to, okay? So 18, and now I'm divided by what's in this bracket here, which is 9 times negative 1. 9 times 1 is 9, and I have an odd number or just 1, so I end up with a negative 9. So I have 8 now. I have 18 divided by 9, which is 2, and between the two of them, plus and minus, there's just 1, so my answer is negative 2. And before I leave you with that, I think that's about it, really. Just more complex ones like this. So if I had something like this, negative 6. Also, the other thing too, guys, that's division. This is also division. So a fraction, what looks like a fraction, really means divide, right? So negative 6, negative 3, and that's the same as this, right? So just so we get used to that. And what you do here is you would multiply these and divide this here. The other thing I was going to say is, so if you have something like that, you work your way through. Another way to look at it too, if you had this, just real quick, if we work this out and you want to know what the overall sign is going to be, you can count the number of negative signs in this entire question, right? 1, 2, 3. My final answer is negative, and then figure out what the number is, in this case 2. Okay, so it works no matter what. No matter what way you do it, as long as you don't break the rules. Finally, I do want to point out something here. This is a Starbucks, get it? I'm going to TM that there because I just invented that. Starbucks cup of coffee or whatever you want to call it, and it's going to cost $3 a cup. And again, a lot of students get intimidated by my great artistic skills. Don't feel bad. I'm highly trained in drawing for math class. So this is a cup of coffee, and it costs $3. So now I'm going to explain what happens when you say a negative times a negative is equal to a positive. Okay, so two ways to look at this. One is the old English, not old English, but the English adage, that's a double negative, right? So I ain't got no shoes. If you ain't got no shoes, then you don't have no shoes, so you do have some shoes, right? Because you said you don't have shoes, or no shoes, which is a little bizarre to not have shoes, but whatever. So that's one way to look at it, right? Two double negatives. I guess a triple negative would be okay then. So if you want to say you don't have any shoes, you could say I ain't got none shoes, which has a lot of problems with it, but apparently you do get your point across. Anyway, look at this here, $3 a cup, and the question is, what happens each day I lose? Think about your bank account. I lose $3, I lose $3, I lose $3, and I keep losing $3. and I get $3 poorer as time goes on. Now, let's say I got sick or I quit drinking coffee or whatever. We'll just say that we're on vacation. It's March break. On your way to school, you spend $3 on a coffee. And on your way to school, it's March break, and you're not going to buy coffee, and you just stay home and you make your own coffee or whatever, or someone buys it for you, and you don't spend $3. So I don't spend $3. So I don't spend $3. And how many times do I not spend $3? I don't spend it 5 times. So before I was losing $3 5 times, and now I'm not spending it 5 times. So now I have -3 times -5, and now my bank account is $15 more. And there is the story of why 2 negatives equal positive. Okay, I'm not spending. Sorry. 5 times I'm not spending $3. So the spending's the negative here, the not's the negative here, and now I'm $15 richer. Okay, so that's the best example I can use for 2 negatives multiplied to make a positive. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Take care.